All right, well, I know there's some folks still milling around outside the cookie station. And I mean, I kind of can't blame them, so maybe people will join us as we get going. But I do want to be respectful of everyone's time who is in here with us. I know there was a little bit of room confusion, so just so folks are in the right spot. The person-centered presentation is next door, and we are going to be talking about wellness, which is an important part of planning, but it will still be a little bit of a different focus. And for those of you who want to stay and have fun with us, we'll talk to however many of you there are, or however few of you there are. This has been probably the most fun that I've had in a long time in my career, so I'm excited to be here with the partners we have today. I'm Dr. Brandi Kelly. I am the clinical director for the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities. I have been doing this work for over a couple of decades now. I also have a sister who receives services, so I do have what I hope I bring to most of the work that I do, which is the perspective of a family member as well. And joining me today, I have Ashley McReynolds, who is my partner in crime most of the time these days, from the Arc of Louisiana. And we have had the privilege of working together on several projects, and this is just the latest, maybe the most fun, but the latest project that we have been given the chance to work together on. And then we have the actual stars of the show, which is our panel from the Arc of St. Charles. So we have Kiara Keesley, who is our staff program member. She's going to be leaving, I think, us soon to go do some additional fun work in the mental health arena. But we are so excited that she's here today. And then I think on the end, there's Jenna Johnson. On the other side of Kiara is Billy King. Next to him is Malcolm Moore. And then O'Neill Lejeune, who I have to apologize to, because apparently after all this time I spelled O'Neill's name wrong. So I'm going to get it right next time. And we did have another member of the Arc of St. Charles People First group work with us early in our work, Daniel Moorhead, and he is not here with us today, but do want to recognize that work. So we're going to kind of go through this in the following way. I'm going to give you guys some introduction to why we even started focusing on this area as a real priority. I'm going to turn it over to Ashley. She's going to do some introduction to the project itself. Then in the middle, we're going to really spend some time with our panel from the Arc of St. Charles, where they can share with you their experiences directly in this project. And then I will wrap it up. I will not cut them off, so I can talk as fast as I need to at the end to close us out, or I can fill it up if I need to. We purposely designed this presentation to be very flexible so that we are making sure that we are supporting our partners from the Arc of St. Charles People First chapter to really share with you what this experience has been like and why, for them, this is really one of the important things that we've been able to do in the last year. We will try to leave a little bit of time for questions at the end as well. All right, and you know, when you get older, you can't see, so I'll probably take my glasses on and off. Bear with me a little bit. So the reason that we focus on wellness in the context of thinking of it as a protective factor is we know that there's so many things that happen together when you need support, like the folks that we serve in the office are, right? Folks who need day-to-day help to do the things that matter. You've seen several presentations today that talk about that. And what we wanted to do was really look at this from a different perspective. So lots of times, if you have supported someone who has a developmental disability, if you have a loved one who has a developmental disability, or if you experience a developmental disability, you may have felt like people kind of sit around waiting for problems to happen, and then people get interested in trying to solve the problem or help you get to people who can solve the problem. And what we really wanted to do was shift that focus. We wanted to look at what happens if we just think about what a well life looks like. And we help people figure out how they can have that in their life. And what we know is that when we do that, preventable problems are in fact prevented. We know that in the country, but especially in our state, there is not enough mental health professionals for people who need mental health services. And that's important to this project because what happens when wellness is not present in someone's life is we see that their outcomes in life are not what they want. Sometimes people share their displeasure in ways that are not healthy emotionally, physically, and mentally. And it looks like folks need help from a professional when in fact they might not. We also know that even when someone can benefit from engaging with a professional, if wellness is absent in the background, engaging with a clinician is not going to sustainably solve the problem, right? So this is an important foundation of what we want to really do for folks moving forward. One of the things that I do in my role is I supervise our resource center clinicians. Some of you probably know what the resource center is. We have some clinicians in the mental health arena, PT, OT, speech, and nurses who are set up across the state, and they engage with folks when people ask for consultations or folks are not really sure what's going on, or people are sort of in a little bit of a critical situation. And what we started to see on the behavioral health side was about 70% of the time, the problem was not really a complicated clinical problem. It really was the stuff we're going to talk about today. And so our clinicians ended up with lots of recommendations or plans or whatever you want to call them that really were focused on helping people have the things that they wanted in their life, that helped them to de-stress, that helped them to connect, that helped them to be creative, that helped them to get out and about in their community in ways that mattered to them, all of those sorts of things. And what we learned was when people did those things, we were right, the problems really went down. Now that doesn't mean, again, 30% of the time people did need some more clinical involvement. So it doesn't mean you never need that. But that's a pretty big percentage if you think about it. And these were folks who were being referred to us because people didn't have anywhere else to go. And they were really overwhelmed and they were really desperate. And none of that is a judgment on anyone who was offering support to folks, because what happens is sometimes those of us offering support, we get overwhelmed too, right? And so everyone is struggling. And there's not a lot of focus on how do we make it through the day, the week, the month in ways that are really healthy for us, for someone we're supporting, right, that really are attending to the things that matter. And do we even know what those things are, right? All right, so, did want to say one other thing. So the other thing that is coming out now for anybody who's interested, I know we have at least a couple of clinicians in the room, is that even if you are a clinician and you are working with folks, our traditional ways of approaching mental health therapy, they're great, they're helpful, but they are very, very focused on relieving distress. And if you look at a lot of the outcome literature, about 80% of folks relapse if they have significant depression or anxiety, even when treatment is effective. And so folks in the positive psychology movement, they just, I guess, decided to be different. And they thought, I wonder what the heck is different about the 20% of people who don't relapse. And it turns out that what's most associated with the 20% of people who don't relapse is they are focused on more of these positive aspects of wellness, right? So I always like to share that because, again, even when someone does need clinical intervention and treatment, it doesn't make these things less important. They remain very, very important. And together, what we're seeing is that people get good outcomes and those outcomes are more likely to last. Anytime I talk to folks, especially when we have a planning discussion going on next door, I always like to remind folks that no worries, does not have to be extra. This can just be a core part of what you do if you really think about how you do planning and how all these things interact. So when you think about person-centered planning and the preferences that we identify in that process, that's that big outer circle. So those are our broader life goals, the things we like and want to have in our life. But not everything we like and want to have in our life is created equal. You know, how many of you have people that you see, you like them okay, probably wouldn't really lose a whole lot of sleep if you went a little bit longer and you didn't see them, right? Now think about other people in your life who, if you didn't see them every day or every week, your life would be very, very different. Right? That's the difference between person-centered preferences and wellness. So wellness is really the most important pieces of all the things that we talk about when we're exploring person-centered preferences. So if you do a good job in your person-centered discovery, you just dig a little deeper and you identify the things that are most important in all those areas. And you've got the makings of wellness for that person. Now you got to think about, what does it take for the person to access those things? What can they access independently? We're going to talk a little bit about that today. And what does that mean in terms of making sure this is present for this person on a regular basis? And what is that frequency that's important? Is it every day? Is it every week? Is it every month? It's not the same for every single thing we do in our wellness arena, right? I'll give you a simple example. All of us should move around some each day. Most of us don't go to the gym and do an hour-long workout 7 days a week, right? Both are important, but they're just different ways that we nurture a piece of our wellness. In the middle of the wellness circle, you'll see where it says trauma-informed supports. So what you also can discover if you actually do that discovery in depth is that there are going to be pieces of wellness that tell you what makes this person feel the safest, the most connected, and the most in control. And while that is not maybe everything you need to know to be trauma-informed, because we are not claiming to be doing a trauma-informed certification or anything here. Those are some of the most critical pieces of being trauma-informed, and for sure making sure we don't behave in a way that is uninformed, where we may potentially re-traumatize somebody or trigger someone. And that means we have to think about how we respond when someone shows emotion or behaves in a way that looks a little concerning on the surface, right? What we really want to do in that moment is think about, how do we help this person feel safe, feel connected, and feel in control? Not how do we get back control of the situation. The irony is both will happen if you think about those questions, right? They won't happen if you don't. And then what we've really started adding in towards the end of this year is really thinking about nervous system regulation or dysregulation. I really probably should have said regulation in there because we want people to know how to regulate. But nervous system regulation is, how do we calm our nervous system when it really kicks into high gear, right? How many people in here have ever been just so fighting mad that it made you more mad when someone wanted you to be logical? Okay. You ever wonder why we expect other people to be logical when they feel that angry or upset or anxious, but we can recognize in ourselves that that's not really what we want to do in that moment, right? So there's soothing strategies that become important as a piece of wellness that we want to also think about. And when someone's emotions are way up here, that's all they can really do at that moment, right? When I do therapy with folks, whether they have a developmental disability or not, I always say, when your emotions are up here, please don't make decisions. Don't talk to anybody. There's just things that are not going to go well when that happens. But if you have a developmental disability, probably many of you have had someone try to actually get you to do something or solve a problem or engage. Many of you who may have supported someone, and sometimes you've been told to actually engage someone to do something that requires them to think and make decisions at that moment, right? The more that we're learning about the way our brain and our nervous system work, the more we know that's probably rarely going to go really well. So this is really the framework that we want to work within. And the reason I like to do these little circles inside circles is because it shows that we're just getting deeper with our questions and more specific. It's not a brand new or extra process necessarily. For any clinician in the room, you can ask questions that can help people get to some of these center circles, right? All right, so this is really what this ought to look like when we roll it out, right? Everybody, and when I say everybody, I don't just mean everybody who has a developmental disability. This really actually applies to all of us. Everyone should have what they need to support their own wellness. If anyone has experienced trauma, there should be trauma-informed practices. And remember that trauma is not just the things that we think of as big traumas, right? And people who experience developmental disabilities are much, much, much more likely to have experienced the full range of trauma events. So just assume that it's probably a good idea to be trauma-informed even if you don't know, right? And person-centered practices. That should just be the foundation of anything that we do. And I said everyone needs this. Sometimes I think we forget about the support we just naturally get in life. Maybe nobody writes it in a plan, but I mean, you know, my mama called me the other day because she didn't know how to get her YouTube TV to work. And it isn't written down, but I guarantee you I'm the one who gets called every single time, not my sister. Right? So we all use the people that are in our life. We use the community that we live in, right? All of those sorts of things. It's just we can sometimes access that support on our own, so we don't have to write it down, right? So just something to remember. Sometimes we need skills and independence, and the same thing is going to be true for some folks that we support. We're going to have to think about, are there things that folks could do on their own, and how do we help them learn how to do those things? Sometimes stuff's going to happen. And we're going to have moments that are harder than others. And what we really want to do there is we want to check some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. We don't want to rush to a doctor first, right? Even when I worked with folks as a clinician, I work with people to build a guide like we're going to talk about today. And I always say, if things start to feel overwhelming or tough, the first thing you need to do is check your guide. Are you doing all these things? Are you getting what you need to do all these things if you need help, right? Now, you'll notice that those things we have underneath there, DSP and family, our direct support provider and family, those are the things that anybody can help somebody do if they need help. Those last three rungs in this triangle, this is just what we should all be doing on a regular basis. No need for permission from anyone like me with fancy initials behind their name. Right. If someone continues to struggle, then maybe they need to get to a professional. We want to do the best we can to get them to the right professional. So we want to think about what kinds of challenges are they having, what kind of symptoms are they having. Some people will need ongoing treatment and therapy from that clinician. And a subgroup of those people might need written help if they receive significant support and their supporters need some instructions. The reason that those levels get smaller is because a lot of times we jump to asking somebody for a plan when that may or may not be what people need, right? So we just want to be sure that we're sort of working our way up and we're not jumping to some professional intervention when we don't need it, and that we are checking that all these things we are talking about today are present. All right, cool things happen when wellness is present. I'm going to hit this slide pretty quickly, right? You live longer, you're happier, you feel less overwhelmed. You actually have fewer physical health symptoms. There's a cool study that's been done where they actually asked people to go into a monastery, and these were folks who had been young adults in the 70s. So they asked them to act act like it was the 1970s. Notice I said act like, not think about, not reminisce, act like. There was a second group that they asked to reminisce. The folks that they asked to act like it was the 1970s, after 7 days when they exited the monastery, they were walking better. They looked physically more well to objective observers, right? So the more that we actually engage in things we enjoy, things that bring us happy memories, the more we connect with people who share those memories, right? Cool things happen. There is also some research to suggest that pain, even without notable medical intervention that would objectively be expected to reduce the pain, that we feel the pain as less intense when we engage in activities surrounded with our wellness, most notably things that make us laugh, things that make us feel connected, okay? And the opposite is true. So when wellness is absent, all this stuff comes back in. People have more emotional challenges, they feel more stressed, they feel more overwhelmed, their medical issues are more intense and pronounced. These are actually some real examples that I'll just go over really quickly because I just want to set the stage for sort of where we're going. These are real referrals that we received. In one of them, an individual was meeting strange people on the internet and inviting them over. So the middle piece of this was the actual referral problem, right? What had happened was the person had a behavior plan for aggression because she was fighting her staff when the staff, because they were kind of a little off-put by the fact that strangers were showing up at the door, didn't want to let the folks in, right? What we discovered was that she didn't have any family or friends outside of her staff. And what I couldn't fit on the slide is that she also was hearing impaired. So the internet was one of the few ways that she had to actually meet people and connect with folks. So we didn't write her a plan. We actually told them to get rid of the one they had. We didn't get her any more medicine, but what we did do was we worked with them so that they could get her connected to the local hearing impaired community and that she could make some friends. And the problem improved, right? Second one was an individual who was running away to talk to the cashier at the corner grocery store, and so folks were really concerned about elopement. There were all kind of plans that had been in place for elopement. So footnote here, if you know where someone's going, they're not eloping. What we discovered was that the person was sitting at home all day with their staff, and so they really just wanted to interact. That's why they were going to the corner grocery store. So again, we didn't focus on any challenging behavior or mental health treatment. We really sat down with folks and looked at what might this person want to do during the day, how might they want to interact with other people and spend their time and get out of their house. And the last one was a young person who was getting upset with their parents. They were engaging in some arguments. Some of them got physical. The individual had been to see many professionals, been on various medications. Turns out this person was the oldest of a set of siblings, and all their siblings were graduating high school and moving out, and no one was talking about what this young woman's life might look like. And so the start of the solution to that was actually to have those discussions, right? So through some of that work, we built a wellness guide, because what we didn't want was people thinking that they had to get to a clinician for a clinician to give you permission to write this stuff down and just go do it. This is the original version of that guide. I'm going to have a QR code at the end, and you will also see versions of all the wellness guides that our panel actually built for themselves, and some of them are different formats. We care less about the format than that it works for you. The format is really just to give people a place to start and ask some questions. We also do some teaching to direct support providers on all these same concepts in a wellness guide if someone needs some help building their own wellness guide. But this project really was about taking this directly to people so that folks didn't have to wait until a support coordinator or a provider was trained and might ask about some of these things. So this came after several pieces of projects. We did a project with the DD Council with some providers early on where the wellness guide was built. Shout out to Dr. Greer, who's in the room, who was part of that and built the first wellness guide. In COVID, we actually did some adaptations for how do you still tend to wellness when things are a little bit crazy. We built our core direct support training after that, and then we led into this project here, which is really about empowering individuals themselves and their families if someone needs support or is a youth to build their own wellness guides. And we just started at the end of last year actually doing some peer-led training with this group here, and they've done some great work and had an opportunity to present nationally on the work that we've done. So it's been really exciting. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley now.
Good afternoon. I'm Ashley McReynolds. I am a program director at the Arc of Louisiana. I am also a parent of a now almost 20-year-old. That's crazy to say. See Scott Mesh in the back. He met Cooper when he was about 6, so he's about to be 20. Who has co-occurring disabilities. He has a intellectual developmental disability and a pretty significant behavioral health condition. And so, like Brandi mentioned earlier, we've worked on several things over the last few years, but this by far has been the most fun, the most rewarding, and something that I too did not prioritize and have since prioritized that has made a big difference in my life and the care that I'm able to give Cooper. So we started on this in 24-ish, and we really wanted to focus on some just really core areas, which are up here. Relationships and connections. So who are the most important people in your life? How do you ensure that you have access to them? What does that access look like? Is it talking to them on the phone? Is it actual, in-person type of interactions? Is it FaceTime? Is it a combination of the above? What makes your day meaningful? Is it employment? Is it volunteering? Is it any other opportunity that you have to be engaged with others in your community that make your day meaningful? And what does that look like? Then we talk about lifelong learning and creativity. Not everybody has post-secondary goals, but they have a goal of some sort. They have a vision for what their life, what they want their life to be, what they want their life to look like, and what does that look like for them. So we want to make sure that that's a part of the guides as well. And then the spiritual. Doesn't have to be a specific religion, doesn't have to be some type of specific prayer, but everybody has a connection somewhere. Sometimes it's nature, sometimes it's meditation, sometimes it is going to church, being a part of youth groups or other type of adult groups that connect you, spiritually with a group of other people. Obviously, your physical health is super important. So how do you move your body? What does that look like? How much time do you need? Where do you do it? Do you need assistance with it? All of that is taken into consideration. And then the last part is the sharing of emotions and calming. And for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, at least from my experience, this has been the hardest journey that I've been on personally, and then the others that I've worked with, is how do they express those feelings? How do they get to identify that this is the feeling that I'm actually feeling and be able to say, I'm getting frustrated and I need this in order to calm down? This has been honestly like a 5-year journey for my son, is learning how to identify those emotions, being able for, me, if he can't figure it out, to sort of give him some clues about, hey, I think you're frustrated about something. Why don't we, I try to redirect him to something else and then encourage him to use the calming strategies that he's identified and the clinicians in his life has identified for him to be successful. So with this guide, we, I don't know what the next slide is. We partnered with 2 different stakeholder groups. We had our self-advocate group, and then we had a group of families that had a very wide and diverse range of disability type of experience. We had all ages, we had all stages, we had, from literally 3 to adulthood in the family group. And so we all were able to share different perspectives, how things needed to be made accessible for certain types of disabilities. We really wanted to make sure that we were able to pull together the right group of stakeholders to be able to develop a guide that would work for everybody. And even if the format of the guide didn't work for everybody, the nuts and the bolts of that guide would, but they could then develop a different guide that best met the needs for their child or for their loved one. Then we went through working with them on how to build it. And it obviously looks different for everybody. Everybody's needs are different. Everybody's wellness guides are meant to be different. They're individualized. We all have unique needs. We all have different wants, different, desires, all of that. So we went through all of that and then came up with the best format of developing a guide. And we have the example, you'll get it. But just know that you don't have to use it if you don't like it. If it's not meeting your needs, just make sure that you have those core areas incorporated into your wellness guide and then develop whatever format and whatever guide best meets your needs. So we started with sort of 2-hour groups. We met with the families, then we would meet with the self-advocates. There were a few more participants at the very beginning that would participate via Zoom. And then those faded out, and we were left with our core group from the Arc of St. Charles People First chapter. So that was who we, for the last 2 years, have really been working with since the first or second meeting. We do provide just some support as needed. As I've done trainings on this, I've incorporated this wellness piece into a project and grant that I have with the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. I talk about how to navigate the systems for somebody that has a co-occurring disability, and then I've included this wellness piece in the end. I think it's important in just trying to engage directly with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities on the importance of wellness and teaching them how to develop their wellness guides. Okay, now is the show. So, oops. This is the slide. Do we have the list of questions? Okay. All right, so the next, probably 20 minutes or so. I don't know where we are on time. But I'm going to ask the panel just some questions about how they develop their guides, how they feel about it, what a meaningful difference it has made for them, why it's important they feel that they have these guides, how it has driven better success and outcomes for them, their relationships with their direct support staff. It's really extremely eye-opening and is the best part of this presentation. So, question number 1, how did each of you feel when you were asked to partner with us in this project and develop your own wellness guides? Okay, there you go.
So how I felt when Dr. Brandi asked us to make a wellness guide,
Yes.
That was like the first new thing to me about the wellness. Mm-hmm. And creating a wellness guide when we first started doing this project. And I think it helps us a lot with this wellness, the guide plus the other stuff that was part of the whole guide. So I think so it was definitely a new thing to me. I think everybody else's thing was new to everybody else in the group.
Mm-hmm.
It really was new, and I had a little bit of skepticism at first, I'll admit, but as I finished it and took it home and put it into my binder for my workers, I actually had got a new worker right then and there that day, and he said it was the most important and informational piece of paper in that binder. Not even the stuff that came from the ARC and all of their training, could tell him how to handle me more than that. So I'm going to say that it has been a wonderful tool.
Anyone else?
I would say how would I feel about my wellness guide that developed was I'm just going to say I feel blessed because learning about communications and relationships made me feel happy about myself because I have a really great relationship with the ARC and my family. So thank you.
When I was asked to develop my own wellness guide, I was hesitant at first. And then when we started doing it, I started to like the idea of doing it.
I know for me, when I was working on mine with Cooper, he was like, another plan. I'm like, this isn't a plan. This is something completely different, and you are in charge of it. You decide everything that goes in there. You don't have to ask permission. You don't have to. We're going to write it. And it has since been just such an incredible document that has increased his independence, his ability and desire to get up and start his day is just, I mean, the change in him over the last year, because that's about how long we've been using it, and what I've learned as a parent and what I have done was actually like smothering him. The type of support that I was giving him that I thought was what he needed was the exact opposite of actually what he wanted. And so I was creating situations around, for example, in the mornings, we're sleepers. We're not morning people. And so it's a struggle for him to get up in the morning. So I'm constantly in and out of his room. Cooper, it's time to get up. It's time to get up. It's time to get up. And one day he finally looks at me and he goes, I know, Mom, I have a clock. And I said, yep. And he goes, I know what time I have to be out of bed. I have to be to bed by 7 and it's 6:57. And I said, right. And he goes, I know what time I have to be out of bed. And so I stopped going into his room. Now, if he's late, I will go into his room and be like, hey, dude, look at your clock. It's after 7 o'clock. I need you to get up. But before that, I was setting him up to have a bad day, to be frustrated, to be aggravated with me, which made him less independent and want to do things on his own. He was annoyed. So it was a task to go brush your teeth. He would, not want to get dressed or whatever. Now that I allow him to do these things, he's getting dressed correctly, putting his clothes on right. He's picking out clothes that are seasonally appropriate. So when it's 30 degrees outside, he's not walking outside in shorts and a shirt. He's engaged in conversation in the morning that just make things easier for him and for me, because I was smothering him. I was not taking how he likes things done in the morning into consideration. So that was something that I learned through this process as well. All right, question number 2. How has having the wellness guide helped you share information to your staff and to the people that provide you supports?
As I had mentioned a little earlier, I got the paper and took it home, put it in my binder for my staff, and it has been such a tool for them, for any new ones coming in, to be like, okay, I've got this training from the ARC on how to handle a lot of situations, but this is telling me how to handle Malcolm as a person. If he is up in his little gaming room, don't bother him. Shoot him a text if you have his number and let him know, hey, this is going on. Just want to let you know. And at that point, I'd be like, cool. Thank you for the reminder. And then I go do it. I don't need to be, just like Cooper in the morning, I don't need to be pressured into doing something. Just a little poke. There you go. This is the information you need. Cool. Off and doing it.
Yeah. Anyone else? Y'all good?
I think I would share the information with the other ARCs about the wellness guys, and like we share with the Terrebonne ARC
Yeah.
because they liked it a lot, and they were actually really focused on our whole presentation on the whole wellness guide.
Yeah.
I was impressed with that too. I was just like, wow, they're eating our words alive before we can even get them out.
Yeah.
It's like, this is going to make a major impact with them.
Yeah, it did.
Just like it made a major impact with a lot of us here on this panel.
Mm-hmm.
I know for certain my home life has been a whole lot better compared to beforehand.
Mine
where
too.
they're just like, Malcolm, do this, Malcolm, do that. It's like, hey, Malcolm, you got this, 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 and this. Just let you know they're here. Do them when you feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
And with my brain, it's my choice to do them now. So now I'm going to go do them while I'm remembering.
Yeah.
Instead of telling me to do it, remind me, and that makes me do it.
Yeah.
It's a little, I want to call it reverse psychology.
A little bit.
And it works. And it really does. And I'm going to put it this way. It's not what they tell me and what words they use. It's how they tell me to do it. If they're like, hey, Malcolm, you've got dishes in the sink. Would you mind putting them up? Sure. Malcolm, dishes in the sink. Do them. Excuse my sign French, but I'm not doing them now. Why do I have to do them when you're being mean to me? Treat me nice, and I respond. Treat me ugly, and I can say this for a lot of us, treat us ugly, you get ugly back.
Yeah. All right, next question. If you could share one or two things that are the most important to you that you put in your wellness guide, what would those be? You gonna start?
The exercising and the video games.
And why are those so important to you?
'Cause I did the physical health of the wellness guide, so definitely the exercising. Well, usually the video games are like more like my calming. If I have like on a bad day, I can definitely go to the video games and I would be less stressed out.
Yep.
Same. When I come home from a long day, doesn't matter what I'm doing, I'm going to get all the stuff I need to get done, and then I'm going to go into my little gaming room and relax. Maybe I'm just in there watching a YouTube video. Maybe I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. Maybe I'm just playing a mindless, violent video game to get out the aggression I've gotten from the day into something less destructive than an actual person, and just like die ones and zeros.
Billy or Jenna, did y'all have anything?
Well, I just want to say the one thing I wanted to share is more communications at work, because at the ARC I'm always working by myself, and would be nice to have company to talk to. Yeah, it's I mean, to me it's hard to say hello to everybody when you go to work and you don't have time to say hello or say how you doing, and would be nice to do that again. Thank you.
For this one, I think if Cooper were to answer the question, I think he would share that it was super important for him to express when he needed support and when he didn't want or need the support. Because I naturally do things as his mother that is just second nature to me. I don't think about some of the type and level of care and support that I just provided. It's just something that it's on autopilot for me. And so for this, and even working through his supported decision-making agreement sort of happened around the same time. And I sort of had to take my mom hat off for a little bit and separate myself from mom mode to making sure that this wellness guide gets implemented correctly, just like I'm being a supporter for him. Because when I'm in supporter mode, I'm really not a mom. I'm there as a supporter. And so for him, I realized I was giving way too much to, like, I was overwhelming him not on purpose, but some of my support that I was giving him was actually frustrating him. It was causing him to become overwhelmed in situations where he really just needed me to get back, let him try to do whatever it is he was going to try and do. And if he needed my help, he was very capable of turning around and either expressing to me that he needed my help or saying, hey, I need your support on this. And so that, to me, was in all of this is recognizing when somebody truly needs support and when they don't, and being able to step back and let them navigate through whatever it is that they're trying to navigate through, and only being there as like a last resort. So if he really can't figure it out, what it is, if he can't get to, so he's super close with our neighbors, next door, Sugar, who's 98, and then Tiger across the street, who's a state trooper. He loves police. And so that daily interaction for him is super important, even if it's just 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Well, Tiger and I normally get home about the same time. We're pulling in the driveway, and he would immediately go walk across the street. Well, the last thing I want to do after a day's worth of work is go walk across the street and have a conversation, or watch Cooper have a conversation, with this neighbor when there's stuff I have to do inside. I have to get dinner going. I have to do all of this. But I learned that he didn't need me to do anything. I just needed to make sure he got across the street okay and came back okay. He didn't need me to have a conversation with his neighbors, but that interaction meant so much to him. And instead of me being frustrated, all I do is watch him go across the street. He talks to Tiger. Tiger watches him come back. He walks to Sugar, and then he comes home. And I'm not frustrated either. I have probably 10 minutes to sit down and breathe and absolutely do nothing and have a quiet house. Because while I was frustrated, he was also frustrated, because he could tell that I was frustrated, and he really didn't need me to do anything other than to make sure he crossed the street correctly and safely. So that, to me, has been a real important part of the guide, is figuring out support needs, yes or no, what that looks like, and making sure that it's spelled out in the guides for everybody that's around him and around them, so they can get the level of support that they need. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I was going to agree with you that sometimes, yes, that those of us with IDD, depending on our level, like I'm high-functioning autism, I want to learn why the thing happens. Don't tell me, because that's going to ruin it for me. I want to experience the why of a thing. My dad likes to make an example and say, Mac, he's also Malcolm, so he calls me Mac. Mac is the kind of kid that'll burn his hand on the stove and be like, ow, well, what if I use my foot? Which is false. I'm the kind of person that, ow, that hurts. Let me not do that with something else. He sees that I purposely do it when I'm told not to, because, again, if you're going to tell me, show me.
We learn best from our own mistakes.
We learn from doing.
Yes.
If we don't do it,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
We want the why. Those of us with IDD want the why.
Yep.
We want the why answered. Otherwise, we're not going to understand it, and we're going to get frustrated, and it's going to go into a loop spiral.
Yeah. Agreed.
So let us learn. Yes, watch us. Make sure we're safe doing it. But let us. Don't stop us unless you see we absolutely need it.
Yeah. Okay, next one. How is your day better when your wellness activities in your guide happen? And then sort of opposite of that, if the activities that you have in there aren't being able to be done on a daily basis, how is your day worse?
I can say this for certain. If I'm not allowed my little allotted time to come home and breathe and have my little game time, it's not a good time. It's not, the rest of the day is bad. And it's bad. Because at that point, I've not gotten my frustration out. I'm still trying to do other things. And it's piling on to the point where a behavior is going to happen. especially when I'm just like, I want to get this all done. I don't want to be bothered. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And my staff has learned that now. In fact, working at the St. Charles Arcs thrift store, my coworkers and staff over there have realized when I start to wind up, they'll literally say, "Hey, Malcolm," and I'll look at them like death look because I'm angry and I'm frustrated. They're like, 5 minutes, bathroom. And that's code with us. That means, Malcolm, go take a break, you're winding up.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, and just leave. And they'll take over, they'll let me go wind down, and I'll come back with a clear head, back to work. If I'm not allowed to do that kind of thing, I will have an episode. I will have a thing. I need to be able to, and when I'm upset, I can't express myself properly. Mm-hmm. And that'll frustrate me, which makes me more upset.
Right.
Which frustrates me even more, and it'll get into that negative spiral to where,
Yeah.
you know? Mm-hmm. And I know Miss Kiara and I have once had a problem due to a misunderstanding on my own end. We've made up. She still holds it over my head.
It's okay, you can talk about it. Go ahead.
So at one point, I had saved up about $500 of personal money to buy a new laptop. And I was just about to start getting into college at the time. So I bought the laptop and just came home with it. So Kiara says, hold off on opening it. We got to see if you need to have extra money for the thing. Me, I'm just like, I have spent months holding off on buying things that I could have just like, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. No, I took this money and had set it aside as a personal purchase, and now you're saying I can't have it? There was problems, and I was hounding would be a good word? Hounding her daily to find out when I could open it, when I could open it, when I could open it. Because I'm like, I bought this for myself. This was something that I had earned, and I was excited. I'm like, yes, I make good decisions. I saved up for this. I want my prize. And then you're just like, nope. And at one point, it built to a problem where I was still not understanding, and we had a little tiff. We'll call it a tiff.
It's all good now.
Yes, I would honestly say Malcolm had his moment, is what I called it. When he had his moment, I walked away and I allowed him to breathe. Because if not, he was just exploding, and we had other individuals on grounds. So we had to allow him to have his time and his space. And at that time, I was a part of his frustration because I gave a recommendation, and because of that recommendation, he just had his moment. And it was okay. I just backed away, allowed him to have his moment. We ensured all the other individuals were safe, and we let Malcolm have his moment.
And then when I had finally calmed down, she explained it better to me, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. That was my dumb. That was me not understanding because I'm just angry. I'm like, I did all this, now I can't. I'm angry. But we've come a long way since then.
All good now.
And I like to bring up this story because it's personal, and it shows just how much some of the wellness guide has helped, because they know that if they give me, anybody knows, if they give me my space, I can calm down and come back with a clear head and say, hey, I'm sorry, what's the truth behind this whole situation? Or, all right, I'm clear-headed, your side. Because that's how I am. I want all sides of the story before I make a final decision. I'm not going to just be like, oh, you're my best friend. I don't want to hear why these people are accusing you of this. Blah. You're wrong. No, I'm going to be like, okay, let me hear your side. Let me hear your side. I'm going to sit down for a minute with all that information and see whose parts don't match up, and then make a final decision.
Yeah.
And that was the problem between me and Miss Kiara. I didn't know from her full side why. I was just angry because thing has basically been taken from me. I'm like, no. But yeah.
Anyone else have a response for that one?
I think Jenna.
Jenna does. Oh, repeat it. So how is your day better when your activities that you have identified and have in your wellness guide happen and compared to when they don't happen?
When the wellness activities in my guide happen, it makes my day 100% better. But when they don't happen, it makes my day terrible.
That it for that one? Okay. The next question is, how does it help you when things feel hard or if you have big emotions? So how does things that you have incorporated into your wellness guide, any type of calming, soothing activities, how does that help when you're starting to feel like really frustrated and possibly getting angry or potentially having a moment?
I think Miss Kiara and I covered mine pretty well in our little anecdote. So I'm going to let the rest of them have their time.
O'Neill, Billy, do y'all have
Probably
anything?
listen to music to calm me down if I have a bad day.
Okay. Music is one of my outlets too.
Probably watch movies.
Yep. Billy?
Sometimes after work, I get tired days, so I take a nice nap, and at the end of the day, I watch a little TV show, and then take another rest again. And sometimes like to be around family because I want to feel welcome and loved.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You have
I'm
something
going to
else?
say some of the wisest words I'll ever say right now. You're never too old for a nap. Take them. When you have the chance for them and you need them, take them. Trust me, it helps. Like, I have my angry naps. I'll have a really bad day, I'm angry, I'll come home, done. I just go to bed, I'm done for the day. And when I wake up the next day,
Feel
what bad day?
refreshed. Yep. Sometimes we need those hard resets. That's what I call them. How do you feel? Give me some examples about when the activities that you have in your plan don't happen. So whether it's, I know, O'Neill, you like to be outside, exercising, do those things when the weather's bad. If, something happens where you're not able to do that, how does those, like being denied the ability to work out and do those things, how does that make you feel?
Well, usually it's cold. I stayed inside and do the stuff inside, the inside
Okay.
workout, like a inside, like I look on my phone, do like a little mini workout in my game room. If it's
Okay.
cold, so
All right.
kind of do that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, let's just say sometimes when one of my favorite activities don't happen, sometimes I get a little down, but after that, in a few minutes, I start to cool down and accept what they give us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add the greatest thing about Billy, sometimes when things don't happen for him, he will come and say, "Hey, Miss Kiara, can we talk?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Billy." And he's always, if you're not too busy, that's what he adds in. And with that, it's like he opens up the door for communication to express himself when he's not feeling well. So I appreciate Billy for doing that because that's a big step for him.
Yeah, that's big. Jenna, you have anything for this one? No? Where are we on time? 30 minutes. Okay, there's a couple of other questions. So we recently started going to other local chapters of People First and different ARCs across the state to do a similar training to this for some of the participants that they provide services to. We did, I think the last one was Terrebonne Arc down in the Homa, I don't know if it's Homa or Thibodeau or whatever, but it's somewhere down there. And it really was incredible. And watching the individuals recognize things and share directly with their staff, like, hey, I know this about me. I need this. And it was like you could see the light bulbs just, and everything just started clicking in their brains about, I need this and I don't need this. And they were so excited to then go and develop their own wellness guides. And I know some have been put in place. So these next questions are sort of about what has that been like? I know we did the Arc of Baton Rouge, we did Terrebonne. I don't know if we've done any others, but what was your most favorite part about sharing your experience and sharing the information about your wellness guides, the importance of wellness with those groups?
Like you said, TARC alone.
Yeah, definitely TARC.
TARC alone was just eye-opening. Seeing them respond to us was like seeing the payoff of the work. It was just like, oh my God, they're registering this. They want this. They're excited for this. This is what we want. This is literally the goal for us. We want them to want to have better days and have better wellness. And their engagement and excitement for it just lit the fire under myself and probably a few of us up here to say, hey, we're doing it. And this is what we've wanted to do.
O'Neill? Yeah.
Because we also want to share the information with all the different arcs around the areas, and also the Greater New Orleans one, since we'll be going to that one also. So we could talk to them about the wellness guide.
Why do you think it's important? Like, Brandi and I can get up here and talk about this project all day long, but for me, it's really about the lived experience and hearing directly from each of you about what this project has meant, how it's helped you, how it's helped your staff better approach your day, and how, explain that if you can a little bit, like why do you think it's so important that they hear directly from you, whether you're talking to another group of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or if you're in a room like this talking with, other parents, professionals, clinicians? Why do you think your voice in this project is so important?
What better source of information about the horse than from the horse? Straight from the horse's mouth, as they say. And like I mentioned earlier, the moment I put my wellness guide in my binder at home, everything started to change drastically. They realized sometimes I need my space. Texting is the best way to talk to me if I'm up in my little game room or if I'm not having a good day. It literally is, if you hear it from the person you're working with or the person you're trying to understand, the information hits better because, as I said, it's straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Ashley, Billy wanted to share his experience with question number 1 about the best part of getting to share information about wellness and a wellness guide with others.
Absolutely.
Well, I just want to say the one thing I like about sharing information about wellness guide is asking for help, because to me it's hard to do things on my own, and it sometimes stresses me out, and when I struggle for doing things on my own, I ask for help and they help me do it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you want other people to know about just wellness in general, the importance of it, and or the wellness guide?
Both.
Both?
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
It's, I'm going to use the word imperative, that not just those of us with IDD need to think about their wellness. Everyone needs to think about their wellness, because if you don't think about it, where's your day? If you don't have what makes your day better, why'd you get out of bed? You know what I mean?
Anyone else? Nope. Okay. Well, that is it for our panel. And I'm going to turn it back over to Brandi. Yeah. I'm going to let Brandi answer that because she has direct experience with that with her sister. But I will tell you, we had two parents in our stakeholder group whose children were completely nonverbal. One was also visually impaired with a cortico-visual impairment. I think I'm saying that right, CVI. And their ways of communication were just different. They were able to, grunt. The families would notice different facial expressions. They would notice if they didn't have access to certain things after a certain amount of time, they would start to see some whining and some what appeared to be discomfort. So and I know Brandy's not, I think her sister's very similar, but what the family shared was that was how they have learned over time their child's likes and dislikes. And if they didn't have access to certain things, they would start to see, them whimper or whine or get agitated. They might throw an object, just more obviously nonverbal types of communication. But eventually they figured out that they were trying to express a want or a need or a dislike in that way. But Brandi can explain more because she's got actual examples with her sister.
Yeah, so it really is important in those instances to be patient, to be very observant, and to really talk to as many people who know that person really, really well in bringing together the wellness guide. But if you use, the reason we built the guide, instead of just saying, hey, think about these 6 areas, is because it gives you a start on some questions, right? So what are the activities this person seems to enjoy? Who are the people that they seem to want to be around? I can tell you that and my sister does not use words to communicate. She is not able to independently engage any activity on her own. She can't sit up. She can't roll over, right? So she really needs support with every single thing. But what I can tell you is that she absolutely wants time with her family and my parents in particular. Now, if you asked me if she understands inside her head, oh, that's mom that just walked in the door, I don't know, because she can't share that with me. But what I can tell you is that when mom walks in the door and she hears her voice, her response is very, very different. She turns in the direction of mom's voice. She smiles. She can just hear mom's voice on the phone. So you start looking for things like that, right? What seems to be the kinds of things that happen in this person's day that make them smile, that make them respond in ways that let you know they're not really happy? What are the things that are really agitating? My sister also is not able to see very well. So if she's going to watch something, she really responds very well to things that have music in them. So we watch a lot of musicals, right? My dad sings. Nobody can make her laugh or smile more than Dad. I cannot sing, did not get that family trait, so I don't even try. So we've just gathered over time those sorts of things. We've learned that when she's upset, when she's in pain, she has a permanently dislocated hip and several other physical challenges. But we know that massage of her feet and her hands are very soothing, because we can see that when she's agitated, if you start doing that massage, her body starts to calm. So it's really a matter of gathering that information over time and then capturing it. The QR code that I'm going to have at the end, not only will you get their wellness guide, you'll get Coop's wellness guide. It doesn't have everybody's name on it, but they're all there. But there is my sister's wellness guide is there. So it'll give you an example, and you'll notice Katie's wellness guide looks very different from Malcolm's, right? Or O'Neill's, or Jenna's, or Billy's. But I put that in there because it is one of the things that we want to be sure we feel like it's really, really important to partner with folks like these individuals here with you today, because they don't need to wait on someone like me to have people listen to what matters to them. But we also understand that sometimes when you listen to these folks talk, that's the question we often get. Well, what about people who can't tell us, right? So I always share Katie's guide when I do this, so that people can see that it's not limited just to people who can tell you. And we built that guide as her family. The provider that she has did not put that guide together. We put it together, we gave it to them. And there are aspects of what's in that guide that have been part of her various plans, but having it in one place is really nice. And it's easy for people to reference, right? So it's not always easy, but it can be done. And there are versions of the guide that also have a little column that says, do I need support, or put an X here if I need support. So, you know, Malcolm, O'Neill, or Billy, or Jenna might have some things that don't have an X. They just need you to get out of the way, just like they've shared, just like Ashley shared about with Coop. Katie's needs help with every single thing that's on her guide. If we don't pay attention to it, if someone doesn't pay attention to it, it doesn't happen. So we also think it's important that we know, when does somebody need support, so that if we fail to provide that support, they are not going to have that, versus when do we really need to get out of the way, right, if we're a supporter. So all of that is there as well. But you will have that when you get there. I'm going to quickly go through some of this so that if there's any other questions. So you've heard a lot from our panel about things they've noticed that have been improved. And so I also want to toot their horn a little bit more. So in addition to the joint-led, and when we say peer-led trainings, the panel is doing the presentation to the Other People First chapters about understanding wellness and how they built their wellness guide. Ashley and I talk even less at those presentations, because, I mean, when you just want to build your own wellness guide, you don't want to hear me talk about research, right? Like, I do that at presentations like this because we have an audience of people that might have clinicians, providers, as well as family members and individuals with lived experience. So they really do the bulk of that presentation. In addition to that, they have presented live virtually across the state at the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs this year. We all traveled to Minnesota, and they presented at the National Association for Dual Diagnosis Conference, and that is a conference where you have to actually submit your proposal for consideration, and they don't accept every proposal. And I just want to say that a couple of these guys made the picks on social media. Ashley and I did not, for which we are very grateful. They were a hit at the conference, sharing. People came up. When we opened the floor for questions, pretty much all the questions were really directed very much to their experience, which is, of course, what we want to support. And we got asked at that conference if we would be a part of the National Center for Start Services virtual conference in May. And we will be doing that. So when you talk about outcomes, not only is that just cool to keep spreading the info, but those are things that are experiences for everyone involved. And while I'm sure you can guess which member of the panel was never shy, I think many of them would also tell you that's part of what has happened that's been positive out of their experience is just gaining confidence in expressing yourself and talking in front of people and advocating for yourself. And so, those are all things that have happened as we've worked with our panel here. In some of the other projects that sort of led up to this, where we worked directly with some providers, and we helped them use a wellness guide approach instead of what they maybe thought they needed, some of those referrals I shared with you guys at the beginning. What we noticed was that pretty much every person that we worked with, and we took this approach, they had new relationships built, and the relationships they already had improved. Family members who really struggled at times to visit in a way that was meaningful noticed differences, and they were all spending time together more. People who were interested in working were, for the first time, getting people to actually think they could be able to work, and to listen, and to help them explore getting a job. We had a few people who actually ended up with fewer paid staff hours, because as they learned to do more things on their own, as they realized, Malcolm said we want to know why. Well, sometimes folks were worried about people having time alone because they might make bad decisions, or they might meet strange people on the internet and invite them over. Well, it's a pretty compelling outcome and motivation to learn better safety skills if we say, if you really want us to get the heck out of your hair, the best way to do that is let's think about the things you are struggling to do on your own, and if we can teach you what ways to do that. And some of you may have been at the technology panel this morning. That's going to play a role in that too. So some of it is skills, some of it is tech, some of it is a combo. But as we help folks be able to do more things on their own, they don't always need as much present staff. And people had fewer problems. The providers that we worked with, in addition, you heard Malcolm in particular shared some challenges related to some historical, maybe emotional outbursts, and how that has improved. So we see that on an individual basis when we work directly with providers, and they identify for us the 5 to 6 people that they think they are struggling the most to support. Almost 100% of the time, critical incidents go down, right? And we had our very first provider that we worked with, and I always say this because I really think if I had told the provider director to stand on his head for 2 hours and it would help, he just said, I'll give it a shot. They really tried just about anything we asked them to try. They also had a decrease in staff injuries and a decrease in staff turnover. So some pretty good things to think about. I want to talk very, very briefly before we open it up for questions. I mentioned earlier about nervous system dysregulation. So we're actually starting to weave this into some of what we do this year. So in addition to teaching about the preventive wellness approach and just helping people have the day in the life that matters the most to them, we're also going to be doing some work where we're going to teach folks some soothing and regulating strategies. And so just to help you guys think about it, what happens is the thinking part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, essentially goes offline when your emotions take over. So you're not thinking, right? Other thing that's interesting is the memory part of your brain also gets pushed to the side. So whatever you think you learned and you think you know, you can't really retrieve it. So what you need to do in those moments, as we talked about earlier, is soothe so that you can get back into a regulated state. And so we are taking some reminders that help people mine what they know about their own wellness preferences to really see if it helps them think about, what do I feel like doing right now, right? And so if you use the word calmer, it will help you think of just about any of these activities, right? Create, appreciate, love, move, enjoy, rest. And usually if you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you're sad, whatever, you kind of know if you stop and think about it, right? Do I feel like going for a run or a walk? Do I really want to take a nap, right? Do I want to go take a shower? Do I want to talk to somebody? Do I want to just go sit outside for a minute, right? So this is one aspect that we're going to really be exploring more as we go into this new year. And then when people aren't really sure, they've never had to think about what's soothing for them before, what we know from the literature is there's some core strategies that soothe your nervous system. And they include really simple things like cold. Go hold an ice cube, right? Put a cold rag right here on your neck. Your vagus nerve runs right here, and it will calm your nervous system. Humming. Hum your favorite tune, right? Humming also activates that nerve, and then you've got music, right? Heel drops, so going up on your toes and dropping your heels. Walking outside. My youngin' who was in a car accident a couple years ago will tell you, walk outside barefoot in the grass, right? And then grounding using your senses. So just bring yourself back to the present. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? And you can do that with someone. And if you're with someone who looks like their emotions are in overdrive and you don't know them, you can model or suggest these sorts of things. And they're likely to at least be open to one of them or to join you if you are doing it. And these are some calming and soothing strategies. These are things just to remember that you do not need anyone's permission or a professional to do. They are rooted in the person-centered practices we should really be using anyway, so it's easy to incorporate them. We also are working with providers to think about what we call universal wellness supports. And so if you have those universal supports and then you use it in conjunction with someone's individual wellness guide, you can easily support just about anyone. And these are going to address most of the problems that we have. Not all, but most. And even when someone still needs professional help, as I said before, this is going to be a proactive approach that's going to help it to be more sustainable. So we're going to continue our peer-led trainings. We're going to do some smaller co-led groups. There is routine direct support professional training that the office offers on a regular monthly basis that includes how to build a wellness guide. You can get that information from the office, and it's all virtual. We are available to talk to anyone who would like to talk to us and provide any sort of training or technical assistance. And as Ashley mentioned, we'll continue doing some work with other People First chapters. This is the QR code that I mentioned. Both Ashley and I's emails are up there if you want to contact us directly. And we do have about 6-ish minutes for any other questions.
First of all, thank y'all for sharing that y'all find the wellness guide to be one of the most important pieces of that binder. As a support coordinator, that definitely helps me better understand, when building these plan of cares, what really does make the most difference out of these 50, 60 pages that y'all wind up in y'all's binder. Can you give me some more insight as to other things that you find helpful in a plan of care or not helpful? Is there anything like, why do y'all keep putting this in here? This does nothing for me.
Oh, goodness gracious. Is there anything that you don't think is helpful? She said either or. Anything in your plan of care you think is really helpful, anything you don't think is helpful.
Speaking for myself, mine's pretty well planned out because I'm very involved. And I think that's the important thing for the individual that the plan is for, is to get them involved, even if they can't communicate something about it. Like I can, like Billy can, like O'Neill can, Jenna. Just having them there, and they might respond to something that says, that'll tell you, hey, they might not like this. Like at first, I didn't like having my staff 24/7 in my house. I don't really need it, but I eventually came to accept it because they gave me the reason that it's to make sure you're safe. And my staff sit back and let me do what I need to do, and if I ask for help, they give it. So it's more or less just trial and error with the individual that the plan is for.
All right, that makes a lot of sense.
And I'll say this, I'll bring back the wellness guide. this will make planning for the individual 10 times easier because, again, it's straight from the horse's mouth. And that lets you know what they like, what they don't like, how to treat them, how not to treat them, and that can change the plan drastically. Because as soon as I implemented my plan, I think went through a few changes from there, realizing that Malcolm doesn't need this much help, but at the same time, he needs the supervision because he needs the prodding, the light prodding every once in a while to do the things that he can do. It's just that his attention span is short due to one of his disabilities to be able to remember to do them. And when said prodding happens, I do the thing, because now it's on my brain, and if I don't do it at that moment, it's not getting done.
All right, thank you.
That's my point of view on that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I do think, and I've read a lot of plans in my time with the office. So I do think that what the wellness guide does offer, and we have tried to build it in, of course, to the training that we now provide for the support coordinators as well. But I do think what it offers is an opportunity to also reflect a little bit on, maybe what happens first. Because I think that even things like the goals that go in the plan or what the person's life vision is, when you start to see what are the things that matter to them each and every day, if you're exploring some of these areas, you can easily see questions that might follow up that then help us go, well, these might be goals that really are meaningful, right? Maybe somebody can't answer the question of what kind of things would they like to learn, or what hobbies do they have, or maybe they're really struggling with sharing connection, and then that gives you places to mine and all of that. And so I think that it could help kind of planning be a little bit more centrally focused.
It's a little better to focus on the short term than the long term, because if you work with the little baby steps first, the long term becomes much easier to plan out, because the baby steps are helping forge the long into something achievable.
And you can see it all kind of come together, I think.
And just to piggyback off what she said, we just redid Cooper's plan of care, and his wellness guide drove the entire planning process. So, and when I looked at what was lacking in his plan, it wasn't a terrible plan, but what was driving that, like his desires and his goals and his outcome, was missing. And that whole piece was developed within his wellness guide. And so we were able to pull from the wellness guide to talk about how he's getting those goals, and his reliance on me or his dad or paid staff, all of that, has come down pretty significantly because we've implemented the very core just the basic necessities that he needs, and all of this other stuff has just happened sort of naturally. Yeah. So for us, we took the wellness guide to really develop the plan, if that makes sense. I still think the plan I don't think it's unnecessary. I don't think there's pieces of it that are unnecessary. But for me this time around, his wellness guide, and even sort of my wellness guide, really drove how the plan ended up coming out and what it ended up being. And it's never happened that way before. But I didn't realize how important the wellness guide was until I had it, and until he had it.
So we are at 4:01. We'll leave this up for a minute or two if anybody needs to write. And I think y'all are gonna get these PowerPoints at some point. I think they'll be up and available, but I'll leave this up in case anybody needs to get the QR code or wants to write down my email or Ashley's. And if you get to one of us and really the other one needs to answer the question, we will connect you, or you can email us both if you don't know who to email. Thank you guys all for staying with us this afternoon. I hope the cookies made it all worth it. I hope everybody has a safe trip home. And I really do apologize for anybody who has to drive on I-10 or I-12 home at 4 o'clock. You must have really been compelled to join us to wait for that. So, all right, thank you guys very much.